Greetings and welcome to the Rose Bush. My name is Rose. This is the channel where growth happens one thorn at a time. Thank you so much for being here with me today as I sit through and watch another video from LADbible where it's a roundtable of war veterans and they're discussing killings, PTSD, and just overall their experiences. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Let me grab my spectacles first, otherwise, how am I gonna see?
Have you ever killed someone? And how did that feel?
That's a tough one. I joined the army at 16. I joined the Household Cavalry, the Blues and Royals, and then my career path went polar opposites.
I think I've seen that guy before. I think I've watched another video of him telling his story about his time. I feel like I have.
And I became a sniper, and I ended up doing 10 tours of frontline fighting, and then
Yes, it was. I remember it. Okay. Sidebar. He did a separate interview where he talked about his time being a sniper, and it's deep, it's messy, it's like you and your other, your partner, you guys are intimate together in the sense of like, you can't move for days at times. So it's like, you gotta go to the bathroom, you gotta do whatever you do. You can't just like leave, you can't just not take your eyes off the target, while your buddy's over here calculating wind speed and everything. Wild story. Check it out. It's good.
And this is who I am now.
I left school at 14 because in those days, 14 was a good age to leave school, I suppose. At 17, I was called up with the regular army at the outbreak of war at the beginning of September, about the 9th of September, I think it was. And I was on the anti-aircraft defence of London during the Blitz, and I was a gun layer on the 3-inch guns. First week of the war, Dornier, a flying boat, came over on reconnaissance, and
Wow, thank you for your service. For one, check out Homie's medals. Check them out. Okay, epic. Let's go.
came over very close, and I aimed a gun at it through the open sights. Unfortunately, instead of knocking the aircraft out of the sky, I blew the kitchen chimney down. And nobody had any breakfast that morning. They weren't very happy, I can assure you.
Hi, so I joined the RAF on my 19th birthday after seeing a magazine in a careers office back home in Northern Ireland, actually, because my brother was joining the army a year before me. And I saw this magazine with the person hanging out the side of a helicopter on a rope. Well, I thought it was a rope, and I said to the guy in uniform, "What's this guy's job? It looks really cool." And he said, "Well, it's a helicopter crewman, and it's a wire, not a rope that he's hanging out on." And I just went, "That's the coolest job in the whole wide world," and I want to do it. So did all the entrance tests to get into the RAF. I managed to join up on my 19th birthday and went straight to Chinook helicopters and spent 17 years flying on those. And a bit like Craig, ended up in Iraq twice for 2 tours, and then did 10 tours in Helmand as part of Op Herrick. I left in 2019.
I joined the Royal Marine Commandos when I was 18. I came over from South Africa, had a bit of a disruptive childhood, and was just looking for, I guess, something of a family and a brotherhood. Unfortunately, when I was 24, I was on a operation where we were after a high-value target, and I was unfortunately shot through the neck, which paralyzed me instantly from the neck down.
What can you compare being in combat to? How does it feel there?
There's nothing.
Yeah.
You can't compare it to anything. The adrenaline, the way you feel, you I don't know, you laugh sometimes when you nervous laugh because you're in the
Had to.
You become immune to it, I think, over the years. From when I first got to Afghanistan, we'd go into some landing sites that had been either mortared or rocketed the day before, or like some of the FOBs that had been in contact that morning, and then we were allowed to go in. And then as Herrick got more kinetic, we would then, for some of the merge outs, for some of the guys who were T1, so that's the worst kind of injury, and we had to get them out because they had an hour to live, we would then have to go in while the landing site was still under contact. But it became normal. Your normality bar for fear, if that makes sense, kind of started to climb over the years, and certainly for guys who've done multiple tours. By the time you're sat and there's bullets whizzing past you, it kind of feels normal.
In Albania,
What do you mean? What do you mean? I mean, I understand what you mean. Like, after you're in it for so long, it's just like, oh, just another Tuesday where bullets are flying past me and, you know, this complete town is completely demolished. And it's normal. But it's like, what is normal? And I want to know more about the other guy on the end. I want to know, I mean, obviously he said he got shot in the neck and he's paralyzed. But, homie, that machine's breathing through you out of your neck. So I'm just really curious as to really how much damage it did.
Albania and Yugoslavia, it's like these people in Afghan and Iraq. 9 times out of 10 we didn't know who our enemies were because they weren't in uniform. And the rules of engagement, which they told us what to do, we had to wait for them to fire on us before we fired on them.
Hasn't changed.
Yeah,
which was
still
completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because
That's how, at least to my knowledge, that's how it is here in the U.S. too. But doesn't necessarily apply to the police officers, does it? Separate topic.
Because you could have a farmer digging his trenches and he'd have a machine gun in his, and he'd just open fire first. So it's a different type of warfare, behind enemy lines especially.
That's really interesting hearing John say that, because Craig's nodding and Toby will get this too. The Taliban switched onto that. They were really clever, and we used to land at some sites and they'd have an RPG and point it at us, and as long as if they put it down and walked away, we couldn't shoot them, even though we knew they had lethal intent towards us. Unless they physically aimed at the aircraft, we couldn't do anything about it, which meant...
So, like, on your scale of fear and normalcy, like, where does that fall? Like, how is that normal then? Like, I'd be shitting bricks. Honestly. I mean, how is that normal?
Which meant that they could go and collect it, pick it up again, and fire it at these guys. But because the rules of engagement were so strict and it was self-defense, you could only ever pull the trigger if you had the honest belief that you were going to get shot at, and it put you in a very catch-22 scenario.
Have you ever killed someone, and how did that feel?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Me personally, as a sniper, yes, I have. What did it feel like? It felt pretty shit to begin with. I felt I was in trouble. I was in a situation where I had to, because I was saving other people from this one person, you know, and it had to be done. Had the permission to do it, the green light. You have to go.
Seriously. Find his story. Find his episode and watch it. It's so intense.
Through all this stigma of green lights and God knows what. And because I've got a precision rifle with a scope, I can PID that target and I know what I'm looking at. Yeah, and you feel like you're in trouble. And I felt for about a week. I thought I was going to get a tap on the shoulder all the time going, can we have a quick word with you? You know, why did you kill this guy? You know, and then I didn't look at them as people after that. I just looked at them as targets, because if you start looking at them as people, you start thinking they are people, and you start, you know, your mind starts overthinking your actions and what you're doing.
That's a disassociation, full stop. That's it. Like, you have a job to do, and it's a job where you can't allow your emotions to get in the way. And as awful, I mean, obviously it's hard for him to talk about. Like I said, watch his episode, tears, crying, like, it's difficult. It's hard to talk about. It's so heavy on the soul. And it's like, yeah, he's like, it makes you feel, you know, like crap. It makes you feel like it's wrong, because it is. But it's like, it's your job. and you have to desensitize yourself and disassociate so that you can do that job.
I think for me, it was a lot easier, and this was my experience being in the special forces, was that
Okay.
compared to being on generic forces on the ground, was we had different rules of engagement, and in some respects it was a lot easier.
It was easier being a sniper as well because we had ops to go on to take specific targets out, and because you.
Kitty break. Hi. Come here. Okay. Let's go.
Because you've got that scope on that rifle, you can actually PID that, IED layer, IED maker and stuff like that. You can actually PID it.
And ultimately, that made it, I think it was easier for your conscience.
Yeah.
Is there one kind of memory which you would say stuck with you? If you can identify one, what would that be, do you think?
What memory sticks in your mind, John?
What memory sticks in my mind? In what way? What, the memories during the war, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think the memory which sticks in my mind is the comradeship,
Good answer.
which you don't get in civilian life. And we miss it terribly when we come out of the army. The comradeship, I think, is the most important memory you can have.
Yeah,
And all the comrades you missed out on are being killed.
Yeah, I second that. Yeah, banter. You can't beat army banter or marine banter or whatever.
Or RAF banter, all right.
Banter,
Especially in special forces, I think there's probably more comradeship than anywhere else.
A real
Yeah.
band of brothers, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Because
You're working a close
you're there to help each other. You would never leave a comrade behind if you could help it.
One of the saddest memories that stick with me is their repatriation, where their coffin was carried back on to the back of a Hercules, and we were all standing there to attention with our berets on, saluting the coffin, going back to the UK on the back of a Herc. I think that's one of the strongest memories I have, only because it just, it took my breath away. I can't actually describe it. It was just, it was just, but you talk about a memory that sticks with you. Sometimes it's not always the good memories. It's not always the good memories that stick with you. And I'm sure these guys will agree with me. There's a lot of good memories. There's also a lot of hard memories.
Yeah. I mean, my memory that I always look back on Herrick was we had to go pick up 5 guys who'd been killed at Fob Inkerman, actually, which was up the Helmand Valley, and 5 guys had been hit in one go. And I remember the stretchers coming over the ramp, and sorry, I'm gonna get emotional. They were all covered in flags. So there was a Rifles flag on one of the bodies, a Union Jack on one, a Welsh flag on one of them, and each body had a different flag on it. And then the guys set the stretchers down and touched the bodies and went back off into the fight. And there's nothing you can say to those guys that's going to make that better. And that brothership, that brotherhood, it was so apparent in their faces as they set their mates down on the floor and said goodbye for the last time. And, that's something that brotherhood is just in your blood forever. So, yeah. Sorry.
Don't apologize. Do not apologize ever for your emotions.
It's
a lot.
Do you think you can form the same bond in any other way?
No. No, civilians do not understand the way military or ex-military work in their headspace. And I always say PTSD, oh yeah, we all got PTSD, but it's like a train track. You know, there's civilian PTSD and there's military, and it's level because we got PTSD, but it'll never cross
They're not the
because people will
same.
never understand this and we will never understand that.
Yeah.
You know, but
Not even your own government understands or has resources to help you. They just let you out and expect you to figure it out, just like they do to people that have been away in prison. You know, you go to prison for life when you're 19, you come out when you're 80 years old, and it's exactly what they took. Okay? And they expect you to just be able to figure things out. And it's just like, that's not it. You have no support system. You have no idea how to handle anything. And it's just so incredibly sad. And the rate of individuals unaliving themselves in military and ex-military and then committing crimes as a result of their traumas and PTSDs or absolute like neurological conditions because of injuries they sustained. Like, it's just so messed up, and it's just, there's no enough support, and no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to talk about mental health. No one wants to talk about the nitty-gritty and the difficult things, which is why I'm here.
no, but it would go parallel with each other.
John, what about you? What about the people you served with?
People that you served with, memories.
Well, unfortunately, my memory's not all that good. I have had a couple of minor strokes and I lost a lot of my memory.
Oh.
But people I serve with, I suppose they'll always be in my memory because they were very important. They were my comrades.
Is anyone still around from the people you served with?
People around? No, I think I'm about one of the two left, I think. There's only two left in my regiment anyway. I'm one of them.
Do you owe your life to anyone? Has anyone saved you?
Yeah, I had, in my early years in Afghanistan, we were dropping off an unsung load up a place called Kajaki Dam, which is right at the top of the Helmand Valley. And there's wires, like the big sort of high voltage wires that you get here in the UK, we call those helicopter killers, because if you fly into a set of those, you're more than likely going to pull the whole aircraft out of the sky. So when we're here in the UK, we do lots of recce's to make sure that we look for them and we see them before we fly any night navigation routes. And we kind of do the same in Afghanistan, but they're not marked on any maps, so you just have to keep an eye out for them. And but this particular set had been put up and we hadn't seen them, so as we dropped an unsung load off at the drop point, we sort of exited from the drop point and flew straight into a huge set of 250-foot high voltage wires. And the whole aircraft jolted, there was a loud bang. And the first thing I remember was seeing the wire spark out in the 3 o'clock of the aircraft. I was stood at the front door, and the smell of burning electricity just filled the whole aircraft really badly. I looked at my shoulder, and the other crewman had nearly gone through the centre hatch with the jolt of the airframe and actually been saved by his harness. And the whole aircraft was wallowing towards the ground, which was like undulating sand dunes. And the pilot was just shouting, "I can't see, I can't see." So I thought we were going to crash. I held the front of my harness, which is like 2 webbing straps that fit into a buckle, and thought that we were absolutely going to go crash land and I was going to have to somehow get out of the aircraft. And about 15 feet off the ground, the co-pilot, a guy called Marty, said, "I have control," and managed to pull in power and climb us back into the sky. And what had happened, the cockpit had caved in over the handling pilot, so he couldn't see anything. But yeah, that chap that day absolutely saved my life. Yeah, without a doubt.
Wow.
For me, I wouldn't be here today if someone didn't save my life.
Here we go. Here we go.
In fact, there was probably a few guys who, it was my entire squadron who saved my life, really. We were on a special op near the northern border of Afghan, and we were after a high-value target. Once we'd broken through, they had all set up, and yeah, we just walked into a wall of bullets. And there's really nothing we could do about it. I was shot through the neck. Second round hit me on the side of the head, but luckily I was, wearing my Kevlar helmet, so it ricocheted off. The guy behind me was shot through the knee, and
No, not the knee.
yeah, I was dragged out as the firefight ensued by the team coming in behind me, and they started working on me straight away in the middle of the night in the pitch black. Obviously they didn't know where I'd been shot, so the first thing they were doing was trying to find the wound, find the entry wound, to stem the bleeding, pack the wound, and then keep me breathing. So yeah, really I owe my life to about 3 or 4 guys on the ground.
My last tour.
Wow. So Hobie got shot in the neck, and it obviously hit his spinal cord because he's paralyzed from the neck down, so it severed. And it's, man, they should really be having things that cover their neck. Because the neck, you got jugular, his spinal cord. Poor guy. But he's alive, he's living life, and he's probably grateful to still be here.
Went on an op. I was snipering, giving Overwatch in the green zone, and the op went well. Several targets got taken out. Happy days, innit? And then, as you all know, R4, 5 o'clock in Afghan, pitch black. It's beautiful ambient light. From the, no ambient light, but the stars are beautiful. And it came to about 4:30 and we had to finish this op. So they went back, the patrol went back, and we come off the high ground. Got my vehicle, and there were 3 vehicles, and my first call sign stopped. And as a sergeant, you're not meant to lead. Your junior call sign leads, and they go on from there. And he stopped, and I jumped out of my wagon. I went round, we were in Jackals, open top vehicles. And I said to him, why aren't we moving? And he said, I've got a bad feeling about this. I'm not a religious man. I believe in fate and gut instinct, And he said, I've got wife and kids at home, Craig. I went, all right, mate, all right, I'll lead. So I got in my vehicle, and I didn't want to go into the village because there were too many VPs in the village. So vulnerable points. So what I did, I scooted around the village, and I hit a 30-kilo anti-tank mine. I got blown out.
Holy crap.
Of the vehicle, the left side. My driver hit the steering wheel and lost his legs. But I couldn't find him, and I was trying to crawl. But as I was crawling, my arms were just collapsing on me, and I could hear people, and that constant buzzing sound. Everything's in slow motion, and I could hear people shouting behind me, "Stay still, stay still, stay still." And I blood picked out my head, everything in the nose, ears, and I wanted to find my driver. I couldn't see him. And it turned out that I had armoured personnel mines around me.
No.
So if I'd have crawled any further, I would have hit an AP mine. They found my driver where the blast had hit the right side of the vehicle, or the sand went on him. So he was like camouflaging his gear plus the sand, and they only found him because of the blood started out of him.
Did he survive?
Yeah, he did, yeah. And I remember the lads just wrapping me up, their skills and drills took over. I wasn't Craig Harrison then, I wasn't Sergeant Harrison, I was a casualty, and they had to think as me as a casualty, not, and they wrapped me up, put me in a stretcher and took me to the Murchie HLS, and then we got under fire, and they started engaging us from the village and from the green zone because it was quite flat.
It's just like
and the
how
Chinook came down.
It's just like, how, as a civilian, can we even understand? Honestly. Like, yeah. We don't. We don't. But I apologize on behalf of all of us who don't understand. But I want to understand. So please, let me know. Drop me a line.
Down, as the Merc came down, it touched and went off again because it wouldn't land because it was pinging off the side of the Merc. And we needed it because Cliff was bleeding out.
I mean, he's got no legs.
And it landed again, and that's all I remember. That's all I remember.
Incredible.
And I
he
remember
survived.
waking up in hospital in Bastion, and I looked over and I saw blood on this bed, just pure blood on the bed, and it was where my driver was. And I thought, F it, where is he? Where is he? And first thing I thought, he's dead. And they said, no, he's gone in for emergency surgery, trying to save him.
Do you ever miss the military?
Oh, massively. Massively, without a doubt.
The resounding nods there. Isn't
Yeah.
it?
I've got no purpose.
That's it, I miss the purpose.
I say it to my wife every day. I ring her every day. I've got no purpose. What's my purpose? Joined the army when I was 16. Did 23 frigging years. And you institutionalised. That's what happens. You become that person. And then you leave the army and you're lost.
It's exactly what I said earlier about people that are locked away in prison. If you've ever seen the Shawshank Redemption, one of the main characters, Brooks, he gets released, and he was imprisoned for his entire life. And Red, the character of Red, who's played, wow, I'm drawing a blank right now. Regardless, Morgan Freeman. There we go. He says, Red was locked up from like 19, and he's like 80, 90 years old, and that's exactly what they took from him. They took life from him. And Brooks, he just didn't know how to handle life, didn't know what he was doing. He got a job at the grocery store because that was the program, and he couldn't acclimate, he couldn't assimilate, he didn't have a purpose, and he ended up unaliving himself at the end of the movie. And one of my favorite lines is what he says. It just still rings so true even to this day. Like, the whole world went and got itself in a whole lot of a hurry, or something like that. I totally butchered it. Went and got itself in a great damn hurry, or something like that. And it's like he went in a time where there wasn't vehicles on the road, and then he comes out and there's vehicles everywhere, and it's just like culture shock. So it's like, yeah, Craig, he's lost without who he was. Like, he's lost without being in the military. He doesn't know who he is outside of that. And that is something that many of us struggle with, finding our purpose. What is our purpose? And struggling to just assimilate to life.
Civilians don't understand the banter. They don't understand what you go through. They don't understand your PTSD. They don't understand war or anything. And you just feel you've got no purpose. You end up isolating yourself. I know Toby's in contact with friends and family, Marines and all that. Me, no one. 23 years, I've got no comms with no one, except my my number two that I used to sniper with, because we were close, because you had to be close as a sniper pair, But yeah,
That's really sad, Craig.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, mate.
And that's how I feel. And
I can understand that, because in Australia, during the Afghan and Iraq war, I think only 40 Australians were killed. But since the war, 500 Australian soldiers have committed suicide. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
I do think having a network of your friends that you did serve with, certainly it's got me through my hard times in the last 2 years.
true,
I'm sure
it
Toby will agree.
is.
So, maybe time might change and you might feel like you want to connect with those, but equally I
No.
can see why people don't. It's sort of a way of just moving on to the next chapter.
When I got diagnosed with CPTSD, my regiment disowned me. disowned me.
What?
They put you in that wounded soldier unit where you get an officer attached to you. I wasn't allowed back in camp or all. No one rang me from the family's office, NCOs or nothing. Friends that I thought were friends, no one rang me. You. I'm not waiting for that. I'd rather be on my own.
That's a huge feeling on their part.
Gosh, he's so angry. And that's understandable. I'm not here to invalidate his anger or his feelings in any way. I mean, it's crap. There's a lot there to unpack with that. And I empathize with Craig. I mean, I obviously have no understanding, but I have empathy for him. And you know what, Craig? I'd like to be your friend. Let's be friends. Talk to me. Talk to me about whatever you want to talk about. It's cool. You want to talk about your favorite food? Great. You want to talk about your time in the military? Great. Talk to me about whatever you want to talk about. Let's be friends. Let's connect. But if that's not what you want, I respect that too. And I feel like he's put up walls because he was, like he just said, he was labeled and then kicked out. And that does a lot to a person who feels that they don't have anything else other than that. On a personal front, my grandfather was that way. He was a firefighter paramedic all his life, and then he couldn't because medical reasons. His body couldn't take it. His body couldn't do it anymore. And he was forced into retirement for medical reasons, and he was just not the same. So it's like, yeah, that impacts you. It really impacts you, but it's up to you. It really is. It's up to you what you want to do with your life and how you want to proceed, and if you want to continue being in that state. Does Craig want to continue to be there in that place where he feels that he doesn't have anyone? And is it his fear that is keeping him from reaching out? Because I understand that. I definitely do. I'm like, I don't got no friends, but it's like, but I'm not doing anything to change that. I'm not, so it's like, you want to bake your cake and eat it too. Well, you gotta hold yourself accountable.
Especially considering what you've given to the army over the years, I think it's really a huge feeling.
Massive.
I think what I miss as well is that we all wear our rank and our name. Certainly on our flying suit, we have. I was Flight Sergeant McConaughey, Chinook crewman, and I wonder if that was so other people knew who I was, or if I knew who I was, because I could look at that every day and go, that's who I am. It's a bit like you could look at it and go, Sergeant Craig, whatever, and you know who you were by looking at that badge. And when you're stripped of that badge and stripped of the uniform, which essentially becomes your identity, whenever I put my flying suit on, it was like my Wonder Woman costume. I was that person. And it's not that you felt you were invincible, but you felt like you were part of something. You were all there wearing the same uniform. We're all there as a big team. And suddenly I was just Liz from Basingstoke walking around Tesco's, and I wasn't important to anyone at all.
I get looked after from my squadron and my unit very well, and I feel terribly upset, Craig, by what you've said. That's really punched me right in the gut, to the point where after this I'm gonna go and have a word with somebody, because that's bang out of order. Bang out of order.
And I'll tell you some more stuff off camera as well. It's just appalling, mate.
I suspect you're not the only one, though. That's what I think is sad, is that this is just your story, and there's probably about another 30 or 40, if not hundreds, of people like you, and that's quite sad, really. And they need to do something about that.
They use you, abuse you, and spit you out.
If you
don't care what happens.
If you could do it all over again, would you still join the military?
I'll join the Marines. That's what I would do.
Hell yeah.
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 That's what I would have done.
Yeah.
Why though?
Even though I'm in this situation now, it was something I always wanted to do, and I'm proud of what I did. It was the only damn thing I was good at. So yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Well, I'd join if I thought it's worth fighting for. If I was defending my country or my beliefs. That's my opinion anyway. I think I would anyway. I don't know. So it's 100 years old. I'm a bit too old to join up again, I think.
I was, absolutely supportive of the Queen, loved the Queen. But I don't think I ever, went to Afghanistan to serve Queen and country. I went because I wanted to go with my mates. I didn't want to not go, so one of them would go and catch up a bullet that was meant for me. And it's been part of that team. And from a lot of the guys I've spoken to, you kind of went for the guy left and right of you to go with them. You didn't necessarily, put on your uniform and head off to foreign soils for Queen and country. It wasn't really about that. Yes, we all swore an oath to the Queen, but it was more about your mates and your band of brothers that you went to fight for. I don't know if that's right, but
Yeah.
certainly the vibe I got from most people.
Absolutely, yeah. I was shot on a previous operation. I was shot in the arm through the shoulder, and after my time at the hospital at Bastion, I was given the opportunity to either go back home for some R&R and so on and so forth, or I could stay out in theatre because it wasn't that severe. And I chose to stay out because of exactly what you're talking about, Liz. I didn't want someone else coming out and then thinking, oh yeah, I get to go back and spend time in the UK, and someone else was out here who potentially could catch it up.
Yeah.
So I was determined to stay out, even though everyone was telling me, no, Tobes, you need to go back and get your head straight, and so on and so forth, and sort yourself out. But no, I decided to stay, and a couple of weeks later or whatever it was, I ended up getting shot in the neck and paralyzed for life. But yeah, I'd rather me than somebody else, or to live with that guilt that, oh yeah, I went home and someone else came out and is now in this position because I took the option, or for me, the easy way out.
I have such a problem with this because as an outside observer listening to the story, it's like, Toby, do you feel like you deserved that? Do you feel that, like, it's such an interesting, like, mindset to have, like, no, I know I've just been shot in the shoulder, but, like, it's my shoulder. I could do this. But it's like, can you? Can you do this? Because my mind goes to, oh, yeah, that was just an unfortunate set of events that led to you getting shot in the neck and now you're paralyzed for life. But it's like, were you even 100% physically? Were you in pain? Were you just not all there because of pain? Like, it's like this pressure we put on ourselves to show up for other people, and we don't show up for ourselves is so just ass backwards. It's just ass backwards everywhere. So let's just finish this up. It's almost over.
Yeah.
Honestly, I should have just let it keep playing and then said my thoughts at the end, but I can't help myself. All right, that was really interesting. I really liked all of their stories, especially Liz. I found myself wanting to hear more of her, so I wonder if LADbible has anything of her specifically, because I'm gonna go watch it, and who knows, I may react to that next. So I just want to thank you all for joining me today, and I'm very grateful for your time. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed that video as much as I did, and I hope to see you back here on the next one. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you later. Bye.